Did you want a year-round supply of onions? Well, this isn't an actual onion. It is a spring onion. It's part of the onion family and it's perennial, which means it lives from summer to autumn to winter and spring. Year round, you can potentially harvest these lovely green tops. Now, it does have a little bulb like an onion and you can eat it. However, if you want to get a continuous supply and multiply the amount of plants you have, you're going to want to leave the bulb in the ground. And this is because this plant multiplies by itself. This is one of the things I absolutely love about the ever-bearing onion. If you let it sit in the ground for a few months, it will multiply by itself. So what you're going to do in order to increase the amount of plants you have is, I'm going to dig this up. And as you can see here, this has lots of little sections. And to divide it, you're simply going to pull it apart. So I started out with a big clump like this, and just very gently, and you're going to do it in a way so you're not going to damage the roots here. So just gently pry it apart, and I have another plant. Now I know this doesn't look very good right now. We're in the middle of summer and the parts of the plant has suffered a little bit. So what I'm going to do, this one here, where it's quite dry on top, this can still come back to life. I'm going to just snip the end off here. And as you can see, there is a tiny little new growth right there. So I'm going to plant this back into the ground and it will reshoot and it will become a lovely new spring onion. Now, I've got this part here too, so I can continue separating it just gently without damaging the roots. Pry it apart and we've got more plants. So I can keep doing this for this whole section. So just looking at it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I can probably get 7 plants off this one section here. Now, I originally started this plant in my garden with about 7 plants. So about 7 of these. And I now probably have over 100 in my garden, and it hasn't even taken that long. Now, as I said before, it can die back a little bit in summer, so the tops might start to brown off. Here's some here that's looking a little bit sad, but you can just pull that off. This part here is still edible. Obviously, when it gets like this, you might not want to eat it. You can simply break that off. Just get rid of the dry parts. But as long as you leave it in the ground, don't pull the whole bulb out. It will grow back. Now, I know some people do like to eat the little bulbs down the bottom, and that's fine. You can pull the whole thing up and eat the whole thing, but if you do, you obviously won't be able to keep growing this plant. You're only going to get an endless supply if you just cut it off from here and eat the tops and leave this part in the ground. So as long as that is in the ground, it will keep reshooting. Now, my plants are on an irrigation system, on a drip system, so they do get watered every day. However, these are quite hardy, and once they're established, they don't need a lot of water. They do survive frosts. I'm in Australia and we don't get snow here where we live, so I'm not quite sure how they would go in the snow, but they do survive frosts and they do survive heat. They just look a little sad, and once the temperature comes back down a little bit, then they kind of spring back. So this plant is called the ever-bearing onion, and I really recommend that to start growing it, because you will get an endless supply of spring onions and you can multiply the plants really, really fast. Where to buy them? Some places sell them online in Australia. Or you can find someone, if you know somebody that has them, you can, hopefully they might want to give you just a bulb to get started, or a few bulbs to get started. And after a few months of this being in your garden, this will turn into this. And then you just simply separate it, or divide it, and replant them. And you're on your way to having a lot of spring onion. Now, I have before dug them up and separated them when I've been renovating my garden beds, and I haven't had time to replant them, or I didn't have the spot to replant them straight away. So I would sit them in a jug of water, just so this is submerged here, and they will be fine for a few days. I think I've even left them in there for a week. Now, if you leave them any longer, they can start to rot a little bit, but I have had success in leaving them in the water for too long, getting them out, drying them a little bit, and then replanting them. They've still been fine. So they're actually a really hardy plant. So I love this in my garden. So that is a fantastic plant to have lovely green onions, spring onions, year round. The ever-bearing onion.